guys, how y'all doing?
Welcome to the Thought Bubble
By Eiman Idriss.
and Yoni Scherer.
So today we're going to talk about a book by Ray Bradbury
Yep.
called Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah, I love this book. It has lots of symbols, and it's really interesting to see something so old with a lot of modern technology that really is coming true.
Yeah, and if you don't know anything about Fahrenheit 451, it's basically about this guy named uh, Guy Montage, which basically he is it's set in like a dystopian, futuristic kind of scene where books are basically banned.
Yeah,
If any books are seen, it's completely burned by these firemen, which go out of their way to burn any sort of knowledge or books seen. And it comes with like strict consequences as well. And Guy Montage is the main character, and he is a fireman,
he is a fireman.
or at least he was.
He's also a rebel. He is against the society after one of his friends, Clarice McClellan, really sparked his rebellious side.
Exactly. Carice was basically this. She was like seen as a teenage kind of girl
Yeah,
who was very, very like curious. I think that kind of like leads us into like some symbols of the book. What are phoenixes were really big in
yeah.
this book.
Phoenix
No?
is a big symbol. It represents like the rebirth of his society and really of him himself. It represents multiple things and how he gets renewed, like from his brainwashed state where he just goes along with society and everything that's wrong, and then how Clarice kind of sparks his thoughts and he starts to think for himself, and that's really his rebirth. And that the phoenix kind of represents that, especially because he's a fireman in the fire, and society kind of represents fire, and he's rising out of the fire and going like above it.
Exactly, and then we can also see that like the how you brought up fire. The fire kind of like represents kind of like destruction, kind of like how the
Yeah.
fact that uh, nowadays knowledge can be seen as something like kind of positive, but who knows? Like in the near future, society could look like Fahrenheit 451, which is kind of scary because it doesn't seem too far off. Especially like in Fahrenheit 451, people are very like into staying at home,
Yeah.
watching their shows. They don't really go out much, or really at all. And it's seen like on the walls, like some people have like multiple screened walls at their
Yeah.
house, which kind of shows like how it's just, like technology has like completely taken control of society.
Yeah,
which is
it's
kinda
pretty
scary.
it's pretty crazy. He came up with these crazy ideas that no one's ever thought of just to scare people. And now like 50 or like 70 years later, it's like we're starting to see a lot of the stuff he was talking about, and it was just crazy ideas that nobody would have thought of. And now it's like starting to happen, and you never know, like in 30 years time we might actually end up where these people are at their book. It's already seeming to like go towards that.
Exactly, and then also the way that him writing this book years and years and years ago, he must have seen the government as some sort of control or something, because he
Yeah.
also symbolizes the government as these mechanical hounds.
Yeah, I mean, he
Right?
knew. Yeah, the mechanical hounds really do like symbolize the control of the government, how nothing can like get out of the clench of their jaws, and how they really have like they have everyone in their hands, in their paws. Even.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's in the government's control, so I really like how he symbolized that as well.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some more symbols that you saw in this book.
I really like Clarice's flower. I felt
Yeah.
like it really, really, really symbolized her how like curious she was and innocent, and then especially the fact that she died within what like
Yeah.
within the first chapter. No.
Yeah, for sure. And she also is described with a lot of white in the book on
Yeah.
that page describing her, and it like shows her like her purity and
Yeah.
her unique outcome on life.
Exactly. Kind of, if you really think about it, kind of opened up Montage's like point of view on everything.
Yeah, I mean she really did spark the whole book, the whole storyline.
Even though she did end up dying.
Yeah, she died pretty early, but
Yeah.
a lot of it's because of her, and he mentions her various points throughout the book, even after she dies. Even like at the end, he's thinking about Clarice, even though he knows she's dead.
No, and also like if Clarice wasn't a thing, do you think that Montage would have gotten to the?
No, I think he
Really?
would have just stayed in his brainwashed state of mind the entire time.
Wow, I feel like I feel like it's inevitable though.
Yeah, that's true, especially with the lady dying for her books.
Exactly, because
You
that
might
lady
have.
would have sparked something.
That's
It has
true.
to, because if you when I was reading it, Montage when he saw like how much the lady cared about the books
Yeah.
and everything, like you could tell like he, it must have not been his first time. Like he must
No.
have, maybe like even
No,
growing
you
up.
know what it was though? Because that really did start his whole thought process. Books, there might be something in books, but he already started questioning society because of Clarice. It explains like how he never thought of anything until Clarice came along and he's like, and he starts actually thinking for himself.
Yeah, and then I feel like, yeah, I feel like also, yeah, kind of like how you're saying, Clarice made him think, and then he started noticing other things in society.
Exactly.
So there's probably been situations before where like people would have not been happy about like how the woman about the people burning her books, but I feel like that makes sense though, because he probably used to think that was normal before.
Yeah, and going later into the book, what do you think the river symbolizes when he goes floating away?
I feel like the river kind of symbolizes their escape, like the way that they're they're changing society almost.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it symbolizes the like refuge, like a safe haven for him. How and it did explain, which was it gave me chills while I was reading it. It like he was talking about his leisure to think, and it's like Faber said in the book, like one of the main things for society to change is they need leisure to think. And then it's like for the first time in his life he had leisure to think, and he started having all these thoughts about everything while he was in the river, which I think is a really interesting symbol.
Yeah, and I really like how you brought up Faber, because Faber had mentioned 3 points.
Yeah,
and what were the 3 points?
The quality of the quality of the information, the leisure to think about the information, and then the last one was just the ability to carry out the other two.
Exactly, and then like that was what, like not too far into the book
it wasn't too far.
But then you can even see it later on when we were like,
yeah, for sure.
When we were reading more into the book, it kind of shows how Faber's 3 points like was seen to actually be true.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true. That's great plot development. What do you think that the salamander represented? Because it didn't really give an obvious answer. It's kind of up to interpretation.
Yeah. I feel like the salamander kind of showed how how the firemen are very like sly and like not really they're like creepy almost. I don't like that word, but
yeah,
they kind of like how they're not good.
Yeah, they're not trustworthy.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then what about we already talked about fire a little bit, but kind of expand on that a little bit.
Fire. Well, even if you think about fire in like today's world, you just think about
destruction.
You don't really think about it being anything good.
Yeah,
you know?
No, for sure.
But especially how like he represented it in the book, it was almost like as if like fire is bad. Like
yeah, for sure. And I think it's really interesting that fire actually had 2 symbols. At the beginning, it was destruction and terror, and then at the end with the men, it represented life and hope. And I think it's really interesting that something can have 2 opposite extremes that it represents, and that's something that we definitely saw with fire.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I feel like Bradbury in general is so good with like his symbols. Like this is only like a handful of symbols, but I feel like there's like a ton, like many more that we could have that could have been seen, because like even simple things, just like the simple way that like Montage would act or something, could be seen as a symbol as well.
Yeah. And I think the fire also represents like the passion of his ideas.
Yeah.
Then what do you think the mechanical hound represents?
Mechanical hound.
Yeah.
Dude, I feel like this book is so old, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Bradbury must have been thinking even back then.
No, he must be a time traveler, like honestly.
No, exactly. Like there's no way that he's getting so many things on the dot. And especially like these hounds, he's kind of like he's symbolizing that the government's bad. He's symbolizing that they're like really aggressive.
I mean,
right?
again, it's insane to see all these things that we see in today's society that he just completely wildly came up with.
Exactly.
All right. Now let's get to talking about themes that you noticed throughout the book.
I noticed a lot of themes. I noticed that like the characters lost their sense of individuality. Like every character was just copy paste. I guess like the characters that we were introduced to were fairly different from each other, but it felt like everyone in the city was very like against knowledge, just because they were raised that way.
Yeah, that kind of ties into like the fact that they lost their freedom of knowledge in society, which was really interesting, because I feel like the fact that they didn't have the freedom to think for themselves really made it so that they lost their other freedoms, and that's largely due to censorship. What are some examples of censorship that you saw in the book?
Some of the examples, like I feel like I saw a lot of like how people just weren't open to the whole world, you know?
Yeah.
Like they weren't open to anything outside of like the couple people that they knew around them, which was like it kind of like how we said earlier, it kind of ties into like how this scarily close to reality now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and also we saw a lot with the programs on the walls and in the seashells. These are like over and over information just being like spat at the people.
Exactly.
And it's all controlled by the government. They're just brainwashing people, and they
Exactly.
get addicted to it, and that's really how they lose their freedom of thinking.
Yeah, and that's also one of the other themes that I noticed was that it was the role of like government control on everyone.
Yeah.
What were some other themes that you noticed?
I think, well, it kind of goes with the loss of thinking, but it shows that nowadays we really need critical thinking, and people's opinions are like some of the most important things to keep society afloat. Like, if people didn't have their own opinions, which is actually something we're starting to see a lot now with politics, it's like the candidate, they don't have their own opinions, they just adopt the opinions of their party. And it's pretty crazy that like just that, as we already see today, is actually brainwashing a lot of people, and people are just spewing their agenda that they've just learned to adopt because of a certain political party.
Yeah.
And that's really the downfall of society, because Ray Bradbury really did a great job of explaining how that, like, he basically explained what if that goes to the extreme, what will happen, which is the society that they live in.
Exactly, and then it kind of scares us almost because he saw this years and years ago, and then like how you connected it to politics now, and then it kind of scares us because like how it's supposed to look like in 10, 15, 20
Right.
years from now.
Chances are we're going to be like that.
Exactly, and if I feel like if there's no solution soon, then it's gonna turn into like crazy government control and people not being themselves.
And that really does also emphasize the fact that we need to self-reflection is really important. We really need to reflect on ourselves and make sure that we realize what is happening, because I think a big problem, at least in that society, something that could have really prevented it is if people thought, wow, look where society is going, look what's happening. And we need to do that before it's too late, before we're too deep, before we dug too far, so that we can like maintain our society how it is.
Yeah, and I also feel like you know how like the government kind of controlled what the people could see. Like I felt like you know how everything that's going on and like the government kind of can control what we see on the internet. So like us and our social media nowadays, and so like the fact that things that I'm seeing is just simply controlled by what the government wants me to see is kind of like tying into that. It's like it's scarily close to exactly what the book is. And then when we think about the book, that's absolutely insane.
100%. And we're going to get to that in a little bit about really our real world applications of these themes. But for now, let's talk about some impactful scenes that we saw in the book.
Kind of just starting with Montage just realizing the importance of books.
Yeah, that's the scene where the woman died with her books, right?
Exactly. I feel like okay, like how we touched on like how Clarice was in the beginning, how she kind of like opened his mind up. The moment where Montage realizes that is absolutely, it's like this kind of like, you could consider it the start of the whole thing. Like if Montage didn't do that, then he wouldn't have gone and had interest in reading books.
Right. Period. It's really just a mix of that and Clarice that started his so-called rebellion.
Exactly. And then what were your thoughts on how Montage escaped the city?
Oh yeah, that was crazy. That was definitely a very impactful scene. It almost gave me chills, like I talked about earlier with the leisure to think. The fact that he was so close to being caught, and that he just barely escaped with the river, which we already talked about, really symbolizes escape in a safe haven, and symbolizes how the leisure to think is an escape from reality. But it's pretty crazy that he was able to escape like that, and it was really it was like a very tense part in the book. It was the climax, really. Yeah, that was really interesting. And what do you think about Clarice's conversations with Montag?
So, like how we already spoke about it, Clarice was very, very, very important to Montag, like literally figuring out himself and figuring out, okay, is what he doing right? But even though like they didn't have many conversations, they had what, like, how many times they talked?
Yeah, probably only like 3-4 times.
3-4 times. Like, it wasn't even that much, but she was and she was like a young girl as well.
Yeah.
So her difference on the world, her difference on how the world might turn out even after this book, could be crazy. But I feel like Montag just had to listen to Clarice.
Yeah, when I was like reading that part, I definitely thought this book was gonna take a different turn.
Exactly.
I thought they were gonna like fall in love or something.
Yeah. But what were your thoughts on how he confront his confrontation with Beatty?
Oh yeah, that was crazy. That honestly is probably the most like intense 3 pages of any book.
Exactly.
Ever. Like it was crazy. I mean, I think Montag had a horrible response.
Mm-hmm.
I think he should have just kept quiet, and he should have just, done his thing, let them burn his house, because it wasn't really that big of a deal if you think about it. They just burned the books.
Yeah, but for someone, okay, I feel like Montage just doing his whole life burning books. I feel like now that he realized it, it's such a big deal to him.
That's true. It definitely had a very big emotional toll on him. The fact that, wow, he finally sees the consequences to his actions. And that's just, it really led on to the fire. No pun intended. It really led on to the fire of his rebellion, because he realizes, wow, look how this affects people, and I've been doing this to people. This is wrong. And it really continues. But I think the fact that he killed him was a little bit too far.
I feel like the fact that anyone kills someone is too far.
It was only the heat of the moment. And then
but he was also like basically telling him.
Yeah, he was asking him to kill him, really, but it was also the heat of the moment. I think he really should not have killed the other firemen. I understand it was for like witness purposes, but they already figured it out anyway, so he really shouldn't have killed the other innocent firemen.
True.
But honestly, keeping on the theme of like crazy plot twist, what do you think about where the entire city got destroyed?
The entire city getting destroyed was absurd. Like, yeah, no. I could not have seen it coming until like just like a couple pages before. I feel like even like no matter how much I feel like hatred towards the city I'm in, or not just hatred, but like how much I feel like what's going on in my city is wrong, I feel like there's no way I can burn it. Like there's no way.
Yeah, for sure. All right, now let's get into the censorship in current times, as we talked about earlier.
All right, let's think about like some of the censorship that's going on nowadays. One of the main things that I found was that Cobb County schools are banning many books that are strictly race and sexuality, kind of like it's about race and sexuality. I found this information from Cobb County schools, and there was an interview that was done, and it says that the Cobb County School District is not engaging in book banning or book burning. The superintendent, Ragsdale, had said, "We are following well-established federal and state law and policies and practices of the district." And then he goes on to say that our process is not a reflection on the author, the subject, or the literary merit of the book. It's an analogous to not giving children unrestricted access to R-rated movies when they are at school. And then he also brings up the fact that I also believe it protects decisions that should be made at home by parents. So that kind of made me think that, yes, they are banning books, and that's absolutely horrible. They should not be banning books. Students should be able to like express what their interests and read more information on what they're into. And the fact that he had, in the interview, it seemed like he almost used parents as, like, the fact that it's district rules and parents as an excuse to the fact that he's not including very important topics in their libraries is very, very, like, unfair. Like, 34 books have been banned from school libraries in Cobb County about LGBTQ plus and everything, and pornographic content, which I feel like is just is like students should be able to openly read about whatever they want.
Yeah, definitely. And where'd you see that from?
And I saw that from Cobb County Schools, their website.
So they were like advertising it, which is pretty crazy.
That's insane.
I saw a similar thing in Marietta schools, and I got this from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It talks about how a lot of Marietta schools, doing very similar to Cobb County, they are like right next to each other after all, but they have also banned LGBTQ and they called it sexually explicit content. And the school board rejected all the appeals to keep the books in. It was by 6-1 vote. So it wasn't even close. Like, they were definitely like...
That's insane.
And some of the books they include are like some big books called Flamer and Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. And critics, as we see on this source, critics have actually called it like they're targeting the marginalized voices of the groups that are being almost like their voices being shut down.
That's insane.
Because of the way they are.
And then in Cobb County schools, actually, the students and parents have protested at school board meetings.
Yeah, same with Marietta City
which
schools.
is insane. And then even with some meetings getting heated and actually like having police called in to maintain like the issues, which really made me interested. Is like, I guess some parents are fighting against it, but I guess some parents is like, as I've read, some parents are also fighting with it. They're saying that they should be taken out, and then some are like the opposite. They think that their kids...
I mean, it makes sense. It's definitely a divided topic.
Exactly. Like, many people think that it should happen. Many people think it shouldn't. I just feel like students should be able to read about what they want to, and then especially with now's day, how many kind of ties into like the government's big plan of like with protests and everything.
Yeah.
Many people are not able to get their point across, and if books about their point are not being able to be read, then what's going on? Like, people's voices are not going to be heard.
Yeah, and about the protests, I know we read a little bit about how the government, or not specifically the government, but also just like different groups, the people's right, the First Amendment right to an assembly, to a protest, is being like taken away from them. And you want to go touch a little bit back on that?
Yeah, I feel like the Georgia passed a Senate bill, the 202, tightening voting rights and regulations. And then this kind of ties into the fact that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, or the AJC, had said that the law restricts ballot drop boxes and absentee voting. And also protesting has been seen to just not be very... It's like, whenever a group of people want to have a protest, they're completely surrounded by police. They're not able to like express their opinions in a safe manner because they feel oppressed by the police that's constantly surrounding them.
Right, and it almost like reminds you of the Jim Crow laws. It's like,
exactly,
it's restricting them just like how they were back then, which is crazy.
And it's their right to like be able to express like their opinion and everything. It's the fact that they're not able to do that without being, just being surrounded by police. It's so stressful on the protesters. But like, it's the fact that just being surrounded by the cops and everything, it makes it stressful, and then that, I feel like, is what also elevates the situation.
Right. That's just their freedoms are being taken away, being repressed. And we also I read a little bit about that in the Georgia elections, on Index on censorship.org. It talks about how in Georgia, actually, people were getting, like, there's security camera videos of like people standing outside of the ballot areas, and like, if someone, I don't know how they figured out who voted what, but there are actually videos of people getting physically assaulted because of the way they voted. And also, people have been threatened, not physically, but maybe physically, but especially legally, like politicians have been threatened, like, if you vote this way, I can ruin your career, type of thing. And it really does sway the vote a lot, especially in a state where, like, we only have, 12 million people. Every vote really does count. And the fact that people are, like, being threatened to promote a certain person definitely sways the vote by a lot.
Exactly. And then kind of touching up on that, the media outlets report, like, what they're putting out onto the media about that is completely different. Like, most of the media is not really showing the fact that people's votes are not being able to like the fact that people's votes, like how you said, people are like basically like told to vote a certain way. Yeah. That's not seen on the media, which kind of ties into,
especially not seen because it's happening in all like the rural areas, not really happening as much in the cities.
Exactly.
And that could even be seen as worse because like the way that the political borders work, the rural areas actually have like more political power per person.
Exactly.
So it definitely does make a big difference.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into the fact that the media doesn't even show most of the issues that are happening around the U.S. specifically. Like I feel like we're able to find these sources and everything, but just being able to find the fact that certain books were banned, these protests are not going well, people are not able to express their voices and everything. It's very very difficult to find because the media is controlling what we're able to do and the information we're able to find.
Right.
Although that's actually the truth.
It's like a double censorship. They're censoring the people we can vote for, the way we can protest, and they're also censoring the information to other people to like see that that's what's happening, which is something that we definitely saw in the book. Although this is in the book is on a much higher scale. It's definitely on the way there, which is
and then
really scary to see.
Everything starts small. Like if it's starting like this, who knows? Like in 100 years' times, that we could be in a world that's just like this book, that we're not able to read. Period. Not just about these certain topics, which is like so scary, and it kind of just like shows that if society's like this now, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, especially with the technology advancements, the fact that we probably soon in like the near future, maybe even in the next few years, we're gonna see AI that can like physically like within seconds take down any piece of information it like itself doesn't want to see, and we might even see like not specifically people censoring everyone, but even AI like itself just wanting to get its own point across, which is really scary. It can definitely take over the world just through that. But AI being like a very new type of thing, like let's compare some of the technology we saw like in the book and nowadays to like the technology that was actually there while he was writing the book.
So I just wanted to like kind of touch up on like the technology back in the 1950s, because this book being written so far back, and then the technology that they had at the time. Do you want to touch up on that?
Yeah, I mean it's insane that he thought of all these modern things that we know today, and especially when you see, we're gonna get into some of the technology that they had back then. Especially if you see that, the fact that he actually guessed a lot of things that exist now are insane. So, like the things in the 1950s were like the big box or like small box TVs in black and white. They just were starting to get color back then, and then like the radios, and they just started to be able to like digitally print things. And also, this isn't really tech, but a big thing in the 1950s, their main form of entertainment was actually books, which is really funny because back then, like, as we see now, more and more people are actually not reading books. Like, the majority of people nowadays, the majority of adults haven't read a book in years. Like, since high school, really. Which is insane. Back then, everyone was reading books all the time, and he guessed that they would slowly decline. Yeah. As well as like the radios, they were just these massive boxes, and the fact that he was able to like guess AirPods is crazy. And also the flat screen TVs, like this one right here. Yeah. He predicted that when all they had is boxes, which is crazy.
Yeah, and even though like when I was reading it, I was kind of thinking that it was like flat screen TVs on like bigger scales because it was like the walls and everything. Yeah. I feel like he did hit it on the dot, which was kind of creepy in a way.
Yeah, really creepy.
Yeah, and then also the fact that like technology has advanced so much from that time, and then if you realize this book is like seen to be written even more ahead in like time and everything.
Yeah, about 30 years in the future.
30 years in the future from now as well. So then it's like he was thinking really far into the future, and then what do you think the future is going to look like?
Yeah, I think it's going to be like honestly spot on to what he guessed, especially like cars are getting faster and faster. Exactly. I think eventually we're just going to get like a leader who's going to abuse their power, and it's going to end up like that. What do you think are some of the technology that like hurts us nowadays, like that is declining our society?
I feel like social media for sure. Yeah. I know that's like very controversial because there is some pros to social media, I'll be honest, but at the same time I feel like the cons of social media is like really overpowers it.
Cause, they definitely outweigh it.
For sure, because literally people's mental health, like it's been seen like many times that the mental health has decreased like through our generation, and what came into our generation was social media very heavily. And then I also feel like social media also doesn't allows for people to scroll for hours and hours on end, where back in the 1950s, as you said, they had books. And so it kind of just shows that maybe books are not going to be banned, but maybe books are just not going to be seen anymore, you know?
Yeah. And touching back on the social media stuff, I think that the main thing is the enemy of good is comparison. And obviously comparison was still a thing, but the fact that we have the ability to compare ourselves to people who are editing themselves and making themselves look better than they really are just in our pocket at all times is like demoralizing almost. And I think the fact that it is demoralizing, people are going to try to protect themselves by not comparing and not thinking and not putting their ideas out there and not having a voice. And eventually the fact that we even have social media and we're trying to protect ourselves from being demoralized because of comparison is going to make our society end up like this.
Exactly. And then social media, it's like, I like how you said that it was like demoralizing because, like, honestly, people are just going to constantly compare to themselves. It's inevitable. You see people in the streets, you're going to compare yourselves to them.
Yeah.
But I feel like even just being in your bedroom, like in the times that you're alone and everything, and there's not people around you, you still have the opportunity to compare yourself
Right.
to people.
I think it's just the constant comparison.
Exactly. Like someone could look and see a girl online that's like tan and amazing, this, that, and the other, and they can start feeling like not confident in themselves, which can lead to like very serious like issues, which is something that we don't want to see in society.
Yes, exactly. You got spot on. And did you talk about AI a little bit?
Yeah, AI is insane. Like
Yeah.
it's considered new, right?
Yeah, it's totally new. It's past few years.
Past few years, it's heavily affected us on, it's heavily affected society on the fact that kids nowadays don't even want to like go and research and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd rather just message AI and be like, hey, do this research project for me.
Yeah,
do this, is this.
Building on the AI thing, that's what you just said about the research is completely true. I think we talked about in our themes, we talked about the fact that people lost their freedom to think. And we're not really losing the freedom to think. It's more that AI is causing us to lose the ability to think, even. The fact that we just don't want to use our brains because it's easier not to. And honestly, I've even seen it for myself, just like doing research. I can't get myself to research like normally. Like it's hard to do it. And it's almost like I've lost this, like a lot of mental skills because of AI. And I think that will continue and we'll start losing all skills and be like zombies.
Exactly. No, and I really like how you highlighted the fact that you yourself have seen a difference, because I also have too. Like, I'll be completely honest, AI is very easy to get a hold of.
Yeah, it's free.
It's free. It's online. I just search up ChatGPT. But I feel like that society nowadays, it's become so easy to be like, oh, wait, why is this? Let me go ask AI.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, why is this? Where like in like 1950s, it was like, oh, this is this. Let me go to the library. You know.
Exactly.
And so now just seeing that AI is where we're going to is like, it's number one. It's like kind of, I feel like it decreases the level that you want to think as well. Because I don't want to think. I'm just gonna go ask AI, and it's gonna give it to me in a sentence.
Like parents, I remember when I was in like 3rd grade and AI wasn't a thing yet. My parents were like, when we were your age, we had to go to the library. All you have to do is do a quick Google search, and that already is a big difference. But I think that from going to the library to a Google search, I feel like it engages the same part of your brain. You still have to look for it. It's much easier, but I think we're still thinking. We're still looking for it, and we're still using our brain. And with AI, it's a completely different part of the brain. You're not using your brain almost at all.
Exactly. And then with like, I remember teachers used to tell us like, don't use Wikipedia and don't use this because those are not trustworthy. And then now it's just like AI, like
especially because it can just make things up.
Exactly.
And it does.
Like AI could. There's been many different people that have asked AI questions that are like, to us obvious, but like hasn't gotten it right. And then so then like, it's almost like, how can you trust this robot that everyone trusts? Like
when it's not right.
When it's not true. And then who knows? Like, what if everyone asks that same question to AI? Everyone has their own thoughts about it, and then everyone has an incorrect answer.
Yes, everybody. It's almost like they're adopting the ideas of AI. I mean, not yet, but it definitely is getting to that, and that is almost exactly what we see in the book, which is crazy. But we've been talking about all the negatives. What do you think are some positives of technology nowadays?
Kind of wrapping back to AI, you get an answer quickly. You get an answer without struggling. You simply ask why, whatever. What is this? How is this? So I feel like that is a positive, yes. I also feel at the same time Positive could be the fact that simply like learning quick things online on social media. Social media, yes, it can be a con, but also you can learn many different things on how to make your lifestyle better, on how to like literally make money, on literally just us today trying to figure out how to make a podcast work.
How to make a podcast? Yeah.
Exactly.
What
about you?
I definitely think a big plus of AI, not of AI, sorry, of technology nowadays is, again, like you said, you get an answer quickly, but in another sense, the fact that we can, within seconds, you can contact anyone in the world. I think that's very useful, especially for like most people like back in like only 50 years ago, if they didn't live near their family, they could only hear them. They wouldn't be able to see their family.
Exactly.
Or like message them. They wouldn't be able to do anything with a lot of people for months at a time, even years at a time.
Yeah.
And now it's just within the touch of your fingers.
Yeah, and I also feel like it's very interesting how I could literally pull out my phone and figure out where my house is from the location I'm at. Yeah. Right? Because like in the olden days, like
the maps.
Oh,
that I didn't even think of that. That's yeah.
Yeah, like there used to be paper maps. If your map gets wet, then that's it, right? Yeah. But no, like now I can literally pull up Google Maps. I can figure out where my house is. I can figure out how to get to the store, and then from there at the store, I can figure out what are the nutritional facts about the thing that I'm about to buy. You know, how much protein does it have? How much does this have? This. So many different things that just come from my phone. You know.
Yeah.
And then also simply just recording. You know.
Yeah.
Like and the camera qualities have gotten amazing.
Incredible. Yeah.
Have gotten incredible. So many like positives to that. And just thinking back back into 1950s, some of these things are unimaginable. Like if you were to ask someone that was born back in the 1950s, I bet they wouldn't even think that technology would come to this
except for Bradbury.
Except for him.
Yeah, speaking about him again, about this book and all the negatives that could get our society like this. We saw at the end of the book how the whole city got exploded and nobody knew it was coming because they were so brainwashed. How did you feel the ending of the book?
The end, I hated it.
Yeah, it was.
I hated the ending. It was. I'm not gonna hate on Ray Bradbury, but the ending was an interesting one. How do you feel?
I think that it almost seems like he was writing this book. He started out very slowly. We see the attention to detail, and then he just realized, dang, I'm about to die or something.
Yeah.
And then he just rushed it at the end. He was like, I just got to end this off somehow.
Yeah. I feel like the ending was very I feel like it cut off so short, you know?
Yeah.
Like I feel like he started to notice that the book was getting long or something, and then he just cut it off, right?
Exactly.
And then the ending, are we considering the fact that what's his name? When he killed like 30 different firemen or whatever.
I say let's just start there. That's the ending, starting where he started killing them.
Okay, when he started killing them, he shouldn't have killed them. Let's be completely honest.
Completely unnecessary.
It was very unnecessary. He could have literally added them and convinced them that books were necessary and everything, and then it could have been it. But I don't think they would have taken that word. But I also think that he shouldn't have killed them. There was really no reason for him to kill them. Right. Well, there was.
There was a reason to kill Beatty.
Yeah.
Because he was almost enticing him to kill him. He wanted to die. And I think the reason, let's just talk about that a little bit. He wanted to die.
Beatty wanted to die.
And I think the reason he wanted to die is because he, obviously, in the book, you can tell that he reads. You can tell that he's smart. He knows what's happening. And I don't think he wants to live like that. I think he realizes that there's no way to get society to go back.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to live how he's living, but he's just like, if you can't beat him, join him.
I guess, but I feel like you know how when like you just feel so much regret because he did burn a lot of books in his life.
Yeah.
I think that he feels bad in a sense. He knows
he's wrong.
He knows what he did was wrong, and he just can't live with that. And so I think that's why he was kind of telling him basically to kill him.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he could have. He didn't want to kill himself. But I feel like also if he didn't kill him, he would have killed himself.
I don't know. He seemed like a happy person.
Beatty?
Yeah, like for sure, 100%.
But he wanted to die.
He wanted to die, which is really confusing.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he was just trying to put on a face of like, oh, he's this strong guy that like he burns books or whatever. But he's also super smart and wanted to die. It's a weird. He was a weird.
He's a weird guy.
He's a weird guy. He's a weird character.
So after he killed him, that happened. So too bad. And then why did he kill the other people? It makes no sense.
I think the death of the other people was unnecessary.
Exactly, because like he was already gonna get. They already knew it was gonna like. Everyone already knew it happened. The police were already after him. Why did he just kill the other people? That was completely.
And he's gonna live with that. You know, like he's gonna live with the fact that he just killed, freaking, so many people. His boss, Beatty.
Yeah.
He killed him. He killed all his like mates or whatever. Like, there's no way that he's able to live his life normally. Especially like, Clarice died as well. Mm-hmm. Dang, he's like scarred. Well, he should be.
Yeah, I mean
he's gone through it. He's gone through so many deaths.
He has gone through it.
And then his wife's gone.
Mm-hmm. It's insane. Yeah, his wife left him. And then, you know, we already talked a lot about the river and the symbols, but let's just talk about that in the ending wise. Like,
I think the river was a nice touch. I feel like it added, like, yes, it was a symbol. Yeah, we kind of already touched up on that, but I feel like it did add it was like one of my favorite things about the ending, because it kind of just showed, like,
yeah, me too.
I also feel like, don't you think the river kind of tied into, like, the fact that it's water and, like,
I didn't even think about that. I think you're overthinking this,
maybe
to
I'm
be honest.
Overthinking it. But, like, I feel like that's what he wanted us to do.
Yeah.
Like, Ray Bradbury writing this book, he wanted us to think and think and think and think, which is kind of, like, not my type of book to read, but
it's really interesting.
It just makes you think so much. What do you think about the river?
Yeah, I think the river, we talked about how it symbolizes, like, escape and a safe haven. And I think that means literally from what's happened, like, from the people searching for him. And I think also I don't know about you, but, like, when I was reading that, like, that whole ending of the book, my heart rate was, like, up. It was like, oh, you know, the whole time. And I feel like the river was, like, a moment of peace in all the chaos. It was an escape from like, just reading. It was an escape from all the chaos. And it was nice. It, like, represented, like, and I feel like that's why we can relate to it so much, because, like, we were feeling similar emotions, like, obviously on a way lower scale, but, like, to what he would be feeling. We're feeling it while reading it, and I think that's why we can really relate to it.
And then now I'm kind of thinking about it, like, throughout the whole book, it's like fire, burn, like, all that, and then it kind of ended slow. Yeah. Not slow necessarily, but, like, it kind of ended, like, it was, like, very, very, like, high and intense and everything in the ending. Then when the river was, like, mentioned and everything, and, like, when he brought the river into the thing, it was almost, like, calming down.
Yeah, you know, it was like it was a contrast. Even, like, it's like a character foil. Like, if fire was a character, water would be its character foil, like, in this book. Yeah, exactly. It, like, kind of serves that purpose.
That's true. And then that kind of ties into the fact that the water that was, like, mentioned and, like, the river and everything is like that. It's kind of just saying, like, that's the solution almost. Yeah. It was like, let's get out of here. And, like, you know?
And then going a little bit later, when he finds the people, like, he was scared for his life. He thought they were going to kill him.
Yeah. I feel like that was inevitable, though. He did go through so much stuff. Like, if I was in his position, I'd get scared of everything. I'd even be scared of, like, everyone. Even if my wife showed up, like, I'd be scared of her, you know? But the fact that when he found them, he was very, he was scared, but do you think that he, like, felt some ease when he found out that they were on the same side?
Oh, 100%. 1,000,000%.
Because he was alone.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that also that was, like, really unrealistic.
Yeah. This whole book's... It is realistic, but
no,
it's
let's just say we're in that society. The fact that he just randomly finds, like, 5 people with the exact same thought process as him is just really weird.
Yeah, but it's also, like, it's kind of inevitable with the whole thing of the book. Yeah. Like, I could have assumed that he was gonna find people that were like him, you know? Yeah. But the fact that, I don't know. Where do you think the book, if there was to be another book, where do you think it would go? Like, what do you think would happen next?
In the next book?
Yeah.
Oh, I think he definitely put space, like, there could be a next book. The way that he ended it.
Well, yeah, like, this is, like, years and years ago. There isn't one.
I know, but he definitely ended it like there could be one.
What do you think would happen?
I don't know. I think in the next book, I think they would go to the city and they would convert all the people. I think they would just carry out the plan they were talking about.
I see what you mean. I think it's kind of giving Hunger Games. Do you know what Hunger Games is?
Yeah, of course.
I think it's giving Hunger Games vibes. It's like I don't know what it is about it, but you know how.
Wait, what if this city is District 13 when they exploded it?
Maybe Hunger Games was based off of Fahrenheit 451.
Everything was kind of. It was like kind of the first, not the first, but it was definitely one of the first like dystopian stories, and they're all based off of it in one way or another. Especially just Ray Bradbury's writing style. We kind of see that in Hunger Games with like the insanely descriptive everything.
Yeah, exactly. No, that kind of like makes me think like, I feel like Montag would have. I feel like him like he would go, him and like his buddies or whatever you want to call them, his team, would go and try to like fight for their right to knowledge, you know?
Yeah.
Which is kind of like hearing about it now in society. Fight for your right to knowledge doesn't seem that crazy, no. But like for them, like they lived how old do you think Montauk is?
I think he's 30.
30-ish. Like he's lived 30 years of his life without it, you know?
Yeah.
And then, oh my God, this whole thing happened in just like a couple of days. Like it hasn't even been that long.
I mean, it's been like a couple weeks.
Couple weeks, you think?
I think a couple weeks.
I feel like it was definitely like within the span of.
Well,
okay, let's say
it's confusing because there's a lot of flashbacks.
Yeah, true. But I feel like within the span of a couple of days or weeks or whatever, his whole mindset changed. Mm-hmm. He lost his wife. He met 5 new people. He killed his boss and his.
I know, this is just crazy.
This is insane. And this random teenage girl that he found died.
Yeah. Honestly,
that's
when you think about it, it's really weird. But I think going back to the ending, I think we already talked about the fire. I think the contrasting fire, the way that the same thing can be completely different, is really interesting. And then the fact that the entire city exploded, I felt like there was like a weird, like eerie sense of peace with the explosion.
How?
I feel like he was so used to like the fast-paced city life, and when he got into the forest, it was quiet, and then like it felt like I feel like he felt like something was missing, like there was a part of him that was like still attached to the old thing. Mm-hmm. And then when the explosion happened, obviously it was like super loud, but I feel like he probably felt that piece of him that was still attached like let go, like he felt a moment of peace because of that.
I see what you mean. I feel like also, you know, like the end scene of movies and like Avengers movies and stuff, mm-hmm. where they're all looking at something and then it starts exploding or whatever. I feel like that's kind of how it was.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of just like it kind of gave me like What Now vibes. It was like he's watching it explode. He's kind of sad, kind of. I don't think he was happy.
No, I feel like he was relieved more than anything. Yeah.
I don't think he was happy necessarily. He was relieved. He was definitely like, it was kind of like a breath of like fresh air.
A sigh.
It was like a sigh. And then it was just like, what do I have to do now? Like, because clearly he's a part of this group of people now that have memorized books or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, I don't even know. Like, where is this book supposed to go?
I don't know. I feel like that was, I mean, honestly, for the ending, I think that was a good way to, like, let go of the story. Like,
yeah,
we're wondering more, but, like, not really. Like, because it ended in a moment of peace. And with them looking back and, like, okay, let's go help the people. It ended with a moment of peace, and I feel like I can live with that as the ending.
Do you think the government or, like, the higher power would ever know about them?
I just don't think they cared enough.
They have to care, though, because if they're so, like, adamant about not having knowledge or whatever.
They know that the government knows that they have the high ground. Like, they already have all these, like, millions of people in their hands. They're not just going to all randomly convert.
Yeah, true.
It would have to be something, like we learned about in biology, like the bottleneck effect.
Yeah.
It would have to be something like that to change their
mindset.
Their mindset. And that's exactly what happened. So, you know, it definitely ends up with a few questions, but, like, on what would happen next.
So let's wrap this whole thing up. What do you think our society is going to look like in 10, 20, even 100 years from now?
I think like in the time that this was placed, like in 53, mm-hmm. I feel like it's not going to be like that. But I feel like we're going to be on the road to that, like in like 100 years from now.
I agree.
There's no solution, of course.
Yes. I think that if people do read this book, which a lot of people have, obviously it's a classic, it could definitely help depending on the people that are like in these generations and future generations. If like there's enough people that actually care I
True.
think that's the main thing, that they care and that they try to make a difference. I think if enough people tried, it would definitely, our society could steer off this path. But I think the fact that there's a lot of smart people here and that are going to keep making innovations like AI that's just going to make our life easier.
It is going to make it easier, but it also brings it closer to that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like easier is not necessarily better. There's going to be more innovations like that. But then there's going to be other people like that are just going to use them and they're going to become brain dead and not be able to think for themselves like the people in this book.
Or if we can figure out a way to use it to our advantage, but also continue to learn and take from the knowledge of people previous to us, like reading books, I feel like we could just use it in a good way rather than a bad way, kind of how it's shown in this.
That's the goal, but I think the way that human nature works, people are always just going to try to make it easiest as they can for themselves. So I just think there's no way to regulate it if people are using it correctly or if people aren't.
Yeah.
Especially like AI now, it's the same thing. So I think if our society keeps getting more and more technologically advanced, we are going to end up like this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we just have to be careful and realize, like, where are we going with this? Like, are we trying to go down a good path or not?
Yeah. Also, you know, like the whole global warming thing, how there's so many activists about it.
Yeah.
I think that if there was to be something like this, we're already starting to see it, but if it was to actually get bad, I think we would start seeing a lot of like activists about this.
I completely agree with you. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people are I feel like it's gonna be the older crowd, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like it's gonna be the older crowd.
Yeah, because now it's the younger crowd. I think in the future it's definitely gonna be older people. Yeah, that's really interesting.
I feel like it's gonna be the older crowd because I feel like us, when we grow up and we're like, what, 40s or something like that, it's gonna be worse, and we're gonna know how it was when we were like kids and everything. So I feel like then we're gonna realize we're gonna be the activists on this sort of situation, which is kind of gonna bring us in like a whole like 360, because like right now we don't think too much of it, right? But it's kind of scary because 30 years from now, we could literally be 50 years old and like going through global warming, but not global warming. It's gonna be about technology.
Yeah, and you just gotta have to hope that people care enough to actually like try to make a difference. And also, we like on a positive note, which a lot of people see as a negative note, I feel like governments definitely play a big role in this. As the government, we see here the government is the one controlling everyone.
True.
I think if the governments take the right steps now, they could definitely avoid this from happening. True. Like we see, just an example, the Canadian government and the U.S. government are both like banning TikTok, and everyone hates that. And obviously, like living in it, like it sucks. But like if you take a step back and look at it, it really is like helpful. It's keeping us, because like I personally have noticed myself, like with the short form videos, my attention span has gone way down.
I completely agree with you. I feel like I personally deleted TikTok because of that. In my opinion, it's like my attention span. It used to be good. I used to be able to sit through like a 20-minute long YouTube video, but now I'm just going through YouTube Shorts and 3 seconds in, I'm just not really
exactly. It's like really bad, and I think the fact that they are again, like you touched on, like the old people are gonna be the ones that are the activists. I think like we're saying the old people in the government are like, dang, look at these kids. They're like turning like into little hyperactive monsters.
True.
And they are fixing it. And I think that's amazing, because I think if we continue to have a government like ours, like our government's like pretty uncorrupt compared to other places. If we continue to have like a good, strong government, I think we could definitely keep ourselves from ending up like that.
True. Yeah, and then like kind of wrapping about what you said, there's like countries that have already like officially banned TikTok. Like I know Jordan has.
Yeah.
Also, like I feel like if we look like into like, I haven't done this myself, but I feel like if we were to look into like their like how they're like the children of Jordan are mentally and how like their grades.
It would be a really interesting study to look at.
Yeah, because who knows, it could be better, and then we could start to notice like, okay, hold on, maybe TikTok is not the best, maybe Instagram Reels are not the best. Maybe
it's not.
Whatever,
it's not even just short form content. It's honestly just like screens altogether. And the sad thing that I think is really sad about our society is that it is impossible to live without a screen.
Exactly.
Not even the fact that like you're bored, just the fact that everything, like we have school devices, most like 90% of our work is on our school devices.
True.
the phones, like QR codes everywhere.
Maps.
Just the way that our society works is on screens, and that is very efficient. But I think it definitely ruins, like, okay, so when I go to camp and I don't have screens for like a month, I realize that like by the end of it, like I'm happier. I think more clearly. My eyesight is better even. Like everything is just, I feel more like pure.
Yeah.
And I think that having screens ruins that, which is like, it's like on the way. It's like zombifying me just a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
on the way to how the people are in this book. And I think that sadly, I think we've gone too far. There's no going back now with the screens, but we can still keep ourselves from getting worse with other advancements that will like turn us into actual brain dead zombies.
True, and it kind of like makes us fear for like the future generation, like our kids and our kids' kids. Like, if we're not able to like get a stop to it or like slow it down or like figure out a way to make it, number one, better for their mental health. Number two, like just decrease it a little bit or like have it not be so dependent on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like then like we can actually start to realize like the impact of what could have happened once it's like not gone but like it's fixed. You know. Because without that, like how you said about the camps and everything, I completely understand that. Like, I literally traveled to Libya 2 summers ago, and at one point, like, I think for 2 days, we didn't have internet. When I tell you, my cousins were doing completely fine. They're, like, chilling. They're playing cards and everything. I was struggling. I was struggling. I couldn't even get online. I was, like, going through it. I just couldn't, like, do it. And so it kind of just made me open my eyes to the fact that, like, if I'm so dependent on my phone and being able to keep up with my friends and everything like that, like, I need to grow up. You know what I mean? Like, I need to open my eyes to, like, how society's going to turn out. And I feel like that's exactly what this book did.
Yeah, and I think this is something that, like, you don't really think about when you think about it, but it definitely does have an impact. Like, 100 years in the future, as we see, like, the birth rates, like, I think just in 1800 or, like, 1900 even, the population of the world was, like, 1 billion. Now it's, like, 8 billion. That, like, it's exponentially getting higher. I think in, like, 100 years, we're going to have, like, an insanely large population that it's extremely difficult to, like, maintain without these technological advancements that will actually render our society worse. So I think the fact that overpopulation is going to be a thing is going to, like, ruin us even more.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Overpopulation is just going to lead to, like, more future like advancements and everything just so that we can keep up with the population.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know if I can't really necessarily say if that's going to benefit us or not because it's just going to lead to just more and more people like getting used to technology and trying to like grow upon that. And then who knows, it could turn into exactly how Bradbury said, just not as soon, you know, like in like, I don't know, 100 years, maybe even 200 years.
Yep.
But yeah.
All right. Good talk. Now let's just get our final thoughts on everything.
Yep. I kind of want to say this book was very interesting. It was very eye-opening.
Yeah.
It opened both of our eyes to the fact that society could turn out a certain way, and we got to get it under control.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially with we saw the symbols and the themes and even the real world applications nowadays, as well as the different scenes. And also the technology in the future. All of this really does like come together really nicely to show us, like, to warn us almost.
Exactly.
And it's a really nice book. Honestly, this is one of my favorite books I've ever read.
I can't say the same, but I can say that this book is probably one of the first books I've read that truly made me think after it. Like I truly am nonstop wondering, can we fix society before it turns to this extent? And then if it is at this extent, what can we do to fix it? But yeah.
Yeah. I also think it really highlights books like this that cause us to think. In literature is what is keeping our society intact. The fact that there are books that keep us thinking and there are things that keep us thinking to make sure we don't fall into like a complacent state where everything we do is just for dopamine. And we actually do things based on like how to benefit us in the future. Like there's an analogy or like a philosophy thing where the prisoner chooses the bread instead of the key to his cell, and it's because the people prefer short-term satisfaction over long-term benefits. And I think that literature like this that keep us thinking, definitely keep us wanting to get the long-term benefits instead of just short-term dopamine all the time, which ends up turning us into the
Robots.
society there. Yeah.
Exactly, and I love that analogy. It really shows the fact that just simply getting the knowledge that we need, it can help us in the long run, and I think that's what society has to do.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yep.
that's Fahrenheit 451.
That's Fahrenheit
by Ray
451.
Bradbury.
I really, it was a great podcast. I got a lot of my thoughts out that I wanted to think about. I feel like I'm at a peace of mind being able to talk for an hour at a time.
Yeah, but it was really eye-opening.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really enjoyed speaking about the book.
Yep. Thank you guys so much for
Thank you guys
watching.
so
That
much.
was The Thought Bubble.
Okay, see you guys.